We now know all the games that are going to happen during this weekend, a wild card weekend. It's one of the best weekends of the year. And I want to start out with this game because I think this is a toss up. The Raiders and Bengals. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals are red hot. They just beat Kansas City. Joe Burrow has been on a tear. But the Las Vegas Raiders have won 4 straight games in a row to get into the playoffs, and they just beat the Chargers in a thrilling game. So what do you think are the keys for this matchup for each team? And give me your prediction. Who do you think is going to win this game?
Man, this is tough for me because I've been rooting for Derek Carr and the Raiders. We talked about it last week, the Chargers and the Raiders game. I picked the Chargers. I was wrong, but I said, like, I'm going to be rooting for the Raiders. I think that they're just a special team this year. And with Derek Carr finally maybe a little bit getting some recognition, obviously his MVP season, he was talked as, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. But over the last few years, the Raiders have just been dysfunctional. John Gruden really hasn't or didn't step up to the plate like we thought he would. Mayock hasn't been the best GM. And I feel the same exact way this week as I do last week. I'm rooting for the Raiders, but I don't see them beating the Bengals this week. I think the way the Bengals have been playing, especially Joe Burrow, mentioned in the last show, back-to-back games of 400-plus passing yards, 4 touchdowns, the first time in NFL history. And the Raiders, I just view them as overachievers, really. Carr has put the team on his back between Ruggs getting arrested, Gruden getting fired, Waller missing 5 weeks, having to reshape the entire offensive line in the offseason. They let go of Gabe Jackson, Trent Brown, Rodney Hudson. So just everything that they've been dealing with. And you look at the receivers that Derek Carr's been playing with, like guys like Zay Jones, Deshaun Jackson, Foster Monroe, Hunter Renfrow all of a sudden has become one of the better receivers in the league, especially when it comes to just, route running in hands. He's turned him into a very viable pass catcher. And there's not many quarterbacks in the league that's making that happen, except maybe Zach Wilson, who's making Braxton Berrios a thing. But other than that, what I'm saying? There's not many quarterbacks that could turn Hunter Renfrow into a real viable option. Their defense has stepped up as well, holding 4 of their last 7 opponents to 20 or less points. But I just think the Bengals are the more talented team. They are coming off somewhat of a bye week. A lot of their guys sat in week 18. So I think that's going to, play a part in it. And then the Raiders, on the other hand, are coming off a very emotional game, Sunday Night Football. So a bit of a shorter week. They're playing late on Sunday, then have to travel on the road. I believe they're playing on Saturday, on the road in Cincinnati. When they played in week 11, I thought the Raiders played great in the first half. They were able to get to Burrow, knocked him down a few times, were able to pressure him, able to contain Mixon, only had 26 yards in that first half. I thought the offensive line played great. And even though they were there defensively, they only scored 6 points in the first half, 13 points in the whole game. So we look at this game and I'm like, hey, if the defense can play well, they have a chance. But we saw that a few weeks ago. The defense played well. Derek Carr and the Raiders really weren't able to step up. So I think as long as the Bengals can do basically what they did in week 11, we're able to limit them. This time they will. Waller played in week 11. So as long as you're able to somewhat limit Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs has been getting it going. But I just look at this Bengals team. I think they're a little bit more talented. I would take Burrow over Carr right now. Their weapons are obviously better than the Raiders. So I got the Bengals in this one narrowly. It wouldn't surprise me either way. I got the Bengals win this one 27-21.
Are you telling me you think Derek Carr has made Hunter Renfrow what he is?
Yeah.
You think so?
For sure.
You think so? I think that's
Hunter Renfrow
absurd.
became the number 1 receiver once Waller came out, and he's looked pretty damn good replacing him.
I think Hunter Renfrow is just that damn good. I think he's an underrated receiver.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you look at what Derek Carr has done this season, so I can understand where Joel could say Derek Carr has definitely influenced Hunter Renfrow and his production. Over 1,000 yards, 7+ touchdowns this season. He's been fantastic for them. That being said, it's hard to look at Hunter Renfrow's game and not give him a lot of the credit. He is a poor man's Cooper Kupp at this point. His route running's mint. His hands are fantastic. So I give a lot of credit to Hunter Renfrow, but you can't overlook what Derek Carr's done this season. One of the league leaders in passing yards. I believe he's second in the league. Doesn't have the touchdowns because he doesn't have the touchdown threats on this offense to really be effective in that category. That being said, moving the ball, this guy Derek Carr is doing it with the best of them this year. I look at this game and it's really, really tough to choose a winner because I have been After a hot start to the season, these last couple of weeks have been brutal for me. The Raiders, I counted them out week in, week out since I want to say week 15, and they have just continuously proved me wrong. They've been playing great football of late, shocking the Chargers. They played fantastic. I wouldn't say their defense stepped up. In the first part of the game, the defense definitely played a key part, but down the stretch, Herbert was just lining them up, clutching it up on fourth downs, converting, I believe, 6 fourth downs. Unbelievable accomplishment for Justin Herbert. Unfortunately, wasn't able to come away with the victory, even though I do believe he gave a 10 out of 10 effort. He did everything he could for his team to win that game. But back to the Raiders, their defense has been very good this year, very low-key good, giving up only 333 yards per game. They have been sneaky good in the secondary. That being said, I don't see a possibility where Joe Burrow gets stopped, especially with this hot run that he's on. Now, Dan Orlovsky shared an interesting stat, and I know Joel had seen it because we're in a group chat with one of my friends, and he sent this to me. He has 6 career games of have to get it done. He's played against Bama, Georgia in the SEC title, Oklahoma in the semifinal, Clemson in the national championship, and this season, week 16 against the Ravens and week 17 against the Chiefs. In these games, Joe Burrow is 6-0, has a total of 2,669 yards, average of 444 yards per game, 27 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now, in terms of being that dude and having that kind of built like that nature, Joe Burrow is one of the most like that quarterbacks that I look at in terms of I need to trust the guy. Joe Burrow has that confidence early in his career, and that is dangerous, especially with a young core like this one. They're going to be here for multiple years with the core that they have. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon's been amazing this year. Uzama has been fantastic. The connection that Joe Burrow and him have at that tight end position where there's not that many great talents, Uzama's been more than serviceable for the Bengals. And their defense is just a little bit worse than the Raiders right now. They're giving up a total just above 350 yards per game. And if it's going to be a shootout, I don't see a possibility where the Raiders can outscore the Bengals.
This is one of those games that I look at, and I wish I can pick a winner for both. I wish both teams can advance, and they can both go on to the next round. I look at the Raiders and what Derek Carr has went through. My heart just sinks to my stomach. I feel bad for the dude, all the adversity he's went through to finally reach the playoffs and this moment. The Raiders' last playoff win was in 2002, but then I look at the Bengals and what that franchise has gone through. They haven't won a playoff game since 1991, and many speculate that playoff game actually cursed their franchise because to let everybody remember this moment, 1991, the Bengals faced the Raiders in the playoffs. They beat them, but that was the game Bo Jackson suffered a career-ending injury. And since then, the Bengals haven't been able to win a playoff game, and a lot of people have attributed that to the Bo Jackson curse for ending his career on that day, that divisional playoff game. I rewatched the Raiders and Bengals game yesterday, and I was surprised by what I saw. I saw a lot of things that really favor the Raiders. If you look at the final score, the Bengals beat them 32-13. You look, oh, it was a beating. There's nothing to look at here. But the Raiders held them in check. Their defense held them in check. The secondary was very good against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. You had Riley Reif play that game who started, who's not going to play for this game. Their backup right tackle is going to play Prince. And in that game, Riley Reif, he couldn't contain Max Crosby. Max Crosby was getting after Joe Burrow every single time he wanted. It wasn't until they started bringing Uzama into Chip where he was kind of getting contained a little bit, but he was still getting his way. The offense, I thought, moved pretty well. Outside of the running game, they couldn't really establish the running game in that game. I look at this game, and I just think it has all of the recipes for an upset. And it saddens me to say that because I want to see the Bengals advance. I want to see them win this game, but I just don't think they will. I have faith in the Raiders. I think the key for the Raiders to win this game, just get after Joe Burrow. If they can get after Joe Burrow, they'll be fine, and I think they'll do that. Also, I look at Hunter Renfrow versus Mike Hilton, who's the slot corner for the Bengals. Just a couple weeks ago versus the Colts, Hunter Renfrow was picking apart Kenny Moore, who made the Pro Bowl. Hunter Renfrow was picking him apart. I think he wins that matchup. I don't see any linebacker that can cover Darren Waller. And Derek Carr just has to play mistake-free football. The game in Week 11 was close. It was a very close matchup until Derek Carr threw a pick, and it gave the Bengals very easy, very little field position to work with, and they were able to score at ease. Derek Carr has limited turnovers, but for the Bengals, I think they just have to help Prince out. He's a backup right tackle. If you leave him one-on-one with Max Crosby, he's going to get dominated. And that's a matchup they're going to lose. And if they lose that matchup, they're going to lose the game, in my opinion. And I think they can't call longer developing routes on the Raiders. The Raiders are one of the best teams at creating pressure without blitzing. So they're going to get after Burrow fairly quick. And if they're calling these longer developing routes, I don't think Burrow's going to have the time to make his read and to make the correct play. Now, my prediction for this game, I think the Raiders win 20-14. I'm picking them to upset the Cincinnati Bengals, and I just think Prince won't be able to block Max Crosby. I think Max Crosby absolutely dominates this game. The Raiders are the 13th best pass defense. The first time they played, yes, the score was lopsided, but Joe Burrow only threw for 148 yards, and they struggled throwing the ball that game. And I think the Raiders offensively will do just enough to win the game because the Bengals don't have linebackers to cover Waller, and I don't trust their slot corners against a guy like Hunter Renfrow, who has really come on as of late and solidified himself as Derek Carr's primary target when Waller's not able to get it going. So, I'm picking the Raiders this game. Since 2014, Derek Carr has the most wins as the underdog. I think this game will be one of those wins, and it will add on to his resume. I just have a feeling the Raiders are going to win this game.
This is the biggest toss-up of the week to me when I look at all of these games. So I'm not, opposed to saying the Raiders could win. The one thing that interests me about this Raiders team all season is their usage of Waller. You brought him up a lot, but we saw week 1, he had 19 targets. He was the focal point of the offense, and we all thought, well, this is how the offense should be run. I mean, given this is with Ruggs and Gruden, and sure, but even still, you look the rest of the season, since week 1, he had one game of 10 or more targets. And I know he's been in and out of the lineup, but he's played about 10, 12 games. So even though Waller is by far their best weapon, he's been injured, so I don't know how effective he's going to be. Last week he had 9 targets, was only able to have 2 catches for 22 yards. So even in this high-scoring game where they put up 35 points, Waller still wasn't much of a factor. Defensively, sure, you have to hone in on him, and maybe that takes away, and allows more one-on-one coverage to Hunter Renfrow or one of the speedy receivers on the outside. I think if the Raiders, if Darren Waller is healthy enough to be regular Darren Waller, that's number one. But if they could finally use him in the correct way, and he should be peppered with targets. He's a mismatch. Linebackers can't cover him. They're too slow. DBs can't cover him. They're too small. So if they could finally use Waller and in the correct way and really, ignite this offense, and then you have Hunter Renfrow underneath, you have Zay Jones and Deshaun Jackson take the top off of defenses, you're looking at the game a little bit differently. But I just don't really trust the Raiders right now, the way they've been using Darren Waller over this season. Coming into this year, me and Drew both agreed, Darren Waller is probably the second best tight end in football. But right now, you can't even make the argument he's top 3. So the way they've been using him this season has just been a little bit questionable to me. So although he is one of the most talented tight ends in football, they've just been using him kind of weird. So that's the only thing I would really push back on there. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders are able to come up on top here. They have a really good quarterback. I think the head coach is going to, unless they get blown out by like 3 touchdowns, I think they bring back their head coach and he's there for next season. He gets an extension. So he's playing for his job. The players obviously like him. That makes me think they're going to try their best. But I also know Joe Burrow wants to get his first playoff victory and just get that over with.
I think the players. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
do you want to go?
Go ahead, Joel. It's all right.
I think the players like him so much because they never wanted Gruden to get fired in the first place. Rich Bisaccia was Gruden's right-hand man for like 20 years. And the same staff Gruden brought in, those are the same guys in the building right now with the Raiders. You heard Darren Waller come out earlier this year when Gruden was fired, and Darren Waller said, "We all make mistakes, and Gruden helped me change my life. And for that, I'm always going to be grateful to him." So I think these players they're still very attached to John Gruden. I don't think that has just went away. Sure, John Gruden has been fired, but I think the players still really like John Gruden. And if it was up to them, they would have never let him go as a head coach.
Is Drew frozen? I know he had something to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he is frozen. Yeah, I was waiting for him to talk, and I see him on the screen here. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how you back, Drew. I think we lost you for a second.
Yeah, no, my connection's been very spotty. I've been trying to deal with it while you guys speak, but there's going to be moments like that, and I apologize for that. That being said, I feel to go back to what you were saying, Joel. Darren Waller earlier in the season had the unfortunate position of being the Raiders' best weapon at the tight end position. And there was not a wide receiver on the roster at that point in time that could draw away attention from Darren Waller. Hunter Renfrow now being a solid option in this offense, I feel like it'll allow the game of Darren Waller to open up a little bit. Last week is a little bit of an anomaly. Neither Hunter Renfrow nor Darren Waller killed it in the yardage, but you still had Hunter Renfrow have 2 touchdowns. The Chargers secondary is their strength, and it showed. That being said, I feel like against a Cincinnati Bengals defense, that their secondary is a little bit iffy to a degree. They do have the talent. Awuzie solid. Mike Hilton is pretty solid as well. That being said, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, Darren Waller will benefit from Hunter Renfrow, and I feel like that will ease in the game plan a little bit. But regardless of that, it will be hard. Joel, you're saying that you think that they'll score 14 points. I can't see a world where that happens. I think that the way that this offense has been clicking of recent, to hold them to 14 points would be a miracle. And then if that's the case, then we have to start looking at the Raiders as being Super Bowl contenders, because in my opinion, the Bengals have an offense to compete for a Super Bowl. But ultimately, Joe Mixon is going to play a key part in this game. If the Bengals really want to have a firm grasp on this game, they need to get the run game going. They need Joe Mixon to have his way. If there is a hole of this Raiders defense, it is their rush defense, bottom 20 in the league when it comes to defending against the run. And Joe Mixon's been a top 5 back this year. Statistically, eye test, you just look at it, he has everything you want in a running back, can run the ball through the tackles, outside the tackles, can catch the ball efficiently. Joe Mixon's going to be a key part of this offense. He needs to be a key part to this offense if the Bengals want to have the success I think they will have.
I mean, in their first...
1 second, I have a quick question for Drew. Why do you think this year Darren Waller struggled when last year they've had the same personnel and he was dominant?
I think that it took the league a little bit to adjust to the fact that he is faster than everyone else. And now we're starting to see personnel like Derwin James take that task of defending Darren Waller. Their number 1 defending option on the secondary is now playing defense on Darren Waller whenever he's on the field. We saw week 1. And the Ravens' game plan was not centered around stopping Darren Waller. And that ultimately was one of the most terrible mistakes, because Darren Waller is easily their best offensive weapon. 19 targets week 1. That's what we had expected throughout the entire of the season. They saw that game plan. They realized, hey, let's try and isolate this guy. We have a strong chance of stopping what the Raiders are doing. But to a degree, the Raiders have benefited from, it's crazy to say, Darren Waller being out, because now they don't rely on Darren Waller's production to have success on their offensive game plan. We're starting to see Josh Jacobs really take a firm grasp in the backfield, being super efficient when the ball's in his hands, receiving or running through the tackles, running outside. Josh Jacobs has been great for them. And then Hunter Renfrow, now you have a real reliable wide receiver option, and I feel like it only benefits Waller.
That's fair.
Looking at the first match between the Raiders and the Bengals, at halftime the score was 10-6. It was a grinded out defensive game. I know when you look at the Bengals and their offense and Joe Burrow and all the receiving weapons and Joe Mixon, it's hard to believe that they can be held to 14 points. But the Raiders did a damn good job. And what really killed them in that game was Joe Mixon. He had 2 touchdowns, rushed for over 100 yards. And his touchdowns were really game-breaking plays. I mean, the offensive line didn't give him much to work with, and he just took it to the house. And Joe Mixon had some fantastic runs in that game. I just think that this Raiders team, much like the Bengals, are on a hot streak. You look at the Bengals, they just beat Kansas City. But the Raiders just beat the Colts. They held them to 20 points. And if you look at the game before the Chargers, on their 4-game win streak, 3 of their opponents they have held under 20 points. And I think that can continue against the Bengals. They have a high-powered offense, but I do think the Raiders right now are just playing with a chip on their shoulder. And the Bengals' offensive line is really going to be key, and I don't think they can stop Max Crosby. Max Crosby is somebody who I think can completely wreck the Bengals' game plan and make them play differently than how they're accustomed to playing because he's that good of a player.